Listen, the trumpet is sounding. The watchman is crying from the wall. The days are not ordinary. July is not just another month. For the Lord has spoken, and what he speaks, he brings to pass. Can you feel it? The ground is trembling. The heavens are stirring. July 2025, a month of divine movement, a season of prophetic fulfillment. You were not called to drift in this hour. You were born for this. 1. Shaking will come before awakening. Yet once more I shake not only the earth, but also the heaven. Hebrews 20:26, the shaking is not a curse, it is a call. Throughout the pages of Scripture, God has used shaking as both a warning and a preparation. Before revival, there is often disruption. Before awakening, there is often discomfort. July 2025 will be no different. The Lord is allowing a divine shaking, not to punish his people, but to position them. Everything that can be shaken will be shaken so that what cannot be shaken may remain. That includes nations, institutions, governments, churches, families, and even hearts. The purpose is not destruction. It is purification. It is the mercy of God to shake the foundations that were never meant to support our lives in the first place. We've built on sand for too long, sand of pride, sand of self-reliance, sand of comfort, sand of compromise. And God, in his fierce love, is shaking the idols we've erected, not to shame us, but to free us. He is shaking our routines, our priorities, our illusions of control. Because he wants us awake, you can't sleep through a shaking. He is stirring us from spiritual slumber, from cultural numbness, from religious routines that no longer carry power. Consider this in 2020, when the world shut down during the pandemic, the shaking was global. Economies fell, idols of entertainment collapsed, and for a moment, the world looked up. But instead of staying awake, many went back to sleep. This time, God's shaking will come with greater intensity, but also with greater opportunity. July 2025 will be a month where some things fall apart so better things can be rebuilt on the rock. Imagine a man who builds a beautiful house, but beneath it lies a fault line. For years, it looks stable, until the tremors come. Cracks appear in the walls, floors shift, and suddenly what once felt permanent is exposed as fragile. At first, it feels like loss, but in truth, it's mercy, because now he has a chance to rebuild stronger, wiser, deeper. That's what God is offering us this July. In 1995, there was a man named David who lost his six-figure job, his house, and his reputation all within 6 months. He was devastated. But in that breaking, he fell to his knees and cried out to God. Through the pain, he found purpose. He gave his life to ministry, began mentoring young men, and eventually started a nonprofit that has now helped thousands find freedom from addiction and despair. His shaking was the gateway to his awakening. Likewise, you may feel things crumbling around you this month, doors closing, relationships straining, systems failing, but don't curse the shaking. Lean into it. Ask what God is revealing. Ask what he's removing. Ask what he's trying to awaken within you. For some, it will be a shaking in their career, exposing where they've placed their identity. For others, it will be in relationships, shaking unhealthy attachments that have hindered growth. And for many, it will be internal, a shaking of apathy, a crumbling of self-sufficiency, a divine disruption of spiritual stagnation. But here is the promise: if you yield to the shaking, you will emerge stronger, freer, and more aligned with heaven's purpose than ever before. Do not fear it. Do not resist it. The shaking is not the end. It is the beginning of a greater move of God. July 2025 is a threshing floor moment, and those who let go of the chaff will receive a fresh wind of the Spirit. Just as the early church was birthed after the shaking of Pentecost, so too will this generation see glory rise from the ruins, if we will say yes. Let the shaking come. Let it purify. Let it awaken. For what feels like the undoing is actually the unfolding of something eternal. 2. Hidden things will be revealed, for nothing is secret that shall not be made manifest. Luke 80:17, God is not only shaking the world in this hour, he is revealing what has been hidden beneath the surface. July 2025 will be marked by divine exposure, not for the purpose of condemnation, but for the cleansing and healing of individuals, institutions, and nations. For too long, shadows have remained untouched, secrets buried under layers of religious ritual, political deception, or personal denial. But the Lord declares, nothing is hidden that will not be revealed, nor secret that will not be made known. He does not uncover to destroy, but to redeem. Just as a surgeon must expose a tumor before removing it, so too must truth be revealed before healing can come. We are entering a time when masks will fall, facades will crumble, and the truth, raw and unfiltered, will come into the light. This unveiling will stretch from public platforms to private hearts. Political leaders who have built their image on lies will find themselves suddenly and publicly stripped of their credibility. Religious figures who have preached purity while harboring darkness will be exposed, not by gossip, but by the hand of God. But it will not end there. Even in homes and friendships, in the deep places of our own hearts, God is shining his light. Not to shame, but to save. Not to humiliate, but to humble. And in that humility, he will restore. Think of a woman named Angela, a respected school principal in her community who had lived a double life for over a decade. publicly successful, but privately bound to a gambling addiction that was draining her family and soul. She hid it well until one day in July, a bank error led to the unintentional discovery of her secret. At first, her world fell apart. She was placed on leave, her family devastated, and she nearly lost hope. But in the exposure came the mercy of confrontation. For the first time, she confessed. She broke. She surrendered. Through accountability, counseling, and God's grace, Angela found freedom, not just from her addiction, but from the years of guilt and secrecy that had enslaved her heart. Today, she leads support groups for women trapped in cycles of hidden sin. What seemed like ruin became redemption. That is the purpose of what God will do in July. The exposure will sting, but the outcome will be healing if we yield. Some will try to run from the light, to deny the truth, to justify the sin, but the Spirit will not stop. God is calling his people to walk in the light as he is in the light. And where there is light, there is life. Expect sudden revelations, whistleblowers emerging, hidden crimes coming to the surface, double lives being uncovered, and secret sins no longer hidden in the church. But do not despair. For every hidden motive brought to light, there is a chance for cleansing. For every dark corner revealed, there is opportunity for revival. God is not exposing to destroy his people. He is exposing to save them from the destruction they were heading toward. In July, many will be faced with the choice: cling to the lie or surrender to the truth. Only one road leads to freedom. This unveiling is an act of mercy, a prophetic mirror being held up to our lives, our churches, and our nations. And while the world may call it scandal, heaven calls it grace. For it is far better to be exposed in time than to be judged in eternity. The Lord is preparing his bride, and he will not leave spot or wrinkle untouched. This is the season of refining. Let the truth come, even if it cuts, because the same truth that wounds will also heal. July 2025 is not just about what is falling apart. It's about what is finally coming into the light. And when light enters, darkness must flee. Let the revealing begin and let the healing follow. 3. A window of mercy will open. Now is the acceptable time. Now is the day of salvation. 2 Corinthians 6:22, in a world trembling with uncertainty, where news of wars, economic turmoil, and moral confusion dominate the headlines, it would be easy to believe that God is silent. But July 2025 is not a season of silence. It is a season of mercy. God is opening a window, a divine pause in the midst of chaos, a sacred moment where his mercy will flow like a river for those who are willing to receive it. He has not turned his face away. In fact, he is leaning in. His arms are open, his voice is calling, and the door is not yet closed. It is written, now is the accepted time, now is the day of salvation. This isn't just a verse. It's a divine proclamation over this moment in history. Even as the world shakes and truth is unveiled, God is extending an invitation, a window of mercy wide enough to walk through, but narrow enough to require urgency. Mercy is not weakness. It is power restrained, judgment delayed, love extended. It is the father running to the prodigal before he can even finish his apology. It is Jesus weeping over Jerusalem, longing to gather its people like a mother hen gathers her chicks. That same mercy is reaching out now for the addict who thinks it's too late, for the marriage on the brink of collapse, for the weary soul drowning in guilt, for the nation teetering on the edge of moral collapse. There is still mercy, but this window will not stay open forever. There is a divine clock ticking, and to presume upon God's mercy without responding to it is to play with fire. This moment is precious and intentional. Think of a man named James who had spent over 20 years running from God. He mocked faith, lived recklessly, and nearly destroyed his family with his infidelity and anger. One night in July, after a failed suicide attempt, he lay broken in a hospital bed. No pastor had preached to him. No worship song played. But in the silence of that sterile room, he heard one phrase echo in his spirit, "There's still time." He didn't understand it fully, but something cracked open inside. Days later, he walked into a church and gave his life to Christ, sobbing uncontrollably in the back row. Today, James is a counselor for broken men, a living testimony that even in the final moments before total collapse, God's mercy can reach deeper than our despair. That is what this season offers, a last chance for many to turn, to repent, to receive. We must not mistake God's patience for approval of sin. Mercy is not tolerance. It is the chance to change before it's too late. In July 2025, many hearts will be stirred without knowing why. Old wounds will rise to the surface, not to torment, but to be healed, and opportunities to reconcile, restore, and rebuild will appear out of nowhere. These are not coincidences. They are signs of the window opening. And for those willing to say yes, to surrender pride, fear, and shame, the Spirit of God will meet them with power. We are not promised endless chances. History is full of moments when nations crossed a line, when grace was offered and rejected, when mercy knocked but was ignored. Let that not be said of us. Let July be the month where we respond, where we run back to the Father, where we lay down idols and pick up the cross again. Let this be the month when we don't just observe revival, we become it. For when mercy is met with repentance, heaven rejoices, chains break, and destinies are rewritten. The window is open, but it will not remain open forever. Step through it. The time is now. 4. The remnant will arise in power. Those who know their God will do great exploits. Daniel 11:32, there is a stirring across the earth, subtle yet undeniable. And in July 2025, it will begin to manifest in ways no one can ignore. The rise of the remnant. In a world infatuated with fame and addicted to noise, God is doing something quiet but powerful. He is not looking for the polished or the prominent. He is raising up the hidden, the faithful, the consecrated ones who have been in the wilderness, overlooked by men but handpicked by heaven. These are not people seeking applause. They are seeking his face. They have wept behind closed doors, interceded when no one was watching, and remained loyal when it would have been easier to compromise. They are not perfect, but they are surrendered. July 2025 marks the turning point where God begins to release them. Not as celebrities, but as vessels. They will not carry titles as much as they will carry burdens. Burdens for souls, for truth, for the presence of God to return in fullness to the church. The world has had its fill of performance. Now it is time for power. True. Spirit-filled, unshakable power that only flows through consecrated lives. Think of a woman named Lydia, a single mother from a rural town who worked 3 jobs just to make ends meet. Unknown to most, she would rise every morning at 4 a.m. to pray for her city, lay hands on the names of drug dealers and broken families, weep for revival, and ask God to use her in any way he saw fit. She had no platform, no microphone, and no audience, but heaven was listening. In July 2025, God began to answer. One of the young men she prayed for, once a gang member, stumbled into her local church and encountered Christ in a powerful way. Within weeks, his testimony went viral, sparking revival meetings that drew hundreds. Eventually, it came to light that Lydia had been interceding for that very man for over 5 years. When asked why she never gave up, her answer was simple: because I believed God would use someone like me. That is the remnant. Ordinary people with extraordinary obedience. God is not limited to pulpits or conference halls. He is commissioning remnant voices in coffee shops, in schools, in prisons, in corporate boardrooms. Their authority will not come from popularity, but from intimacy. They won't just speak truth, they'll live it. They will challenge compromise without fear and carry the aroma of holiness wherever they go. July 2025 is the month the unseen ones begin to be seen, not by spotlight, but by assignment. Their emergence will disrupt religious systems, unsettle cultural comfort, and confront the lukewarm with conviction. They will not beg to be heard, but their presence will demand attention. Some will be young, burning with a purity this world has never taught. Others will be older, scarred by battle, but rich in wisdom. But they will all share one trait: they know their God. As Daniel declared, those who know their God will do great exploits. This is not a time for passive Christianity. This is the hour for boldness birthed in the secret place. God is calling forth the Davids, the Esthers, the Elijahs, and the Deborahs, not in costume, but in spirit. If you've ever felt too small, too broken, or too hidden, this is your wake-up call. July 2025 is your release date. The waiting has not been in vain. The refining had a purpose. God was not punishing you. He was preparing you. And now he is saying, come forth. The harvest is great, and the laborers are rising, not with pride, but with purpose. The world may not be ready for them, but heaven is unleashing them. This remnant will not be stopped because they do not draw strength from this world. Their roots are deep, their faith is unshakable, and their mission is clear: to bring the presence and power of God back to a world gasping for truth. Let July 2025 be remembered as the month the remnant rose. If you've been in hiding, don't shrink back. If you've been preparing, step forward. The time is now. The call is real, and the world is about to see what God can do with those who never stop saying yes. 5. Divine alignment for destiny. The steps of a good man are ordered by the Lord. Psalm 37:23. There are moments in life when everything begins to make sense. Not because the chaos ends, but because God starts aligning the pieces. July 2025 will be one of those moments, a divine intersection where God takes what felt random, broken, or delayed and fits it into his perfect plan. It will be a time of divine alignment, a sacred rearranging of people, positions, and purposes. The Lord is not bound by our calendars or timelines, but he does operate in seasons. And this is a season of divine positioning. For many, the past years have felt like wandering through a wilderness, questioning closed doors, confusing transitions, and seemingly wasted time. But God wastes nothing. What felt like delay was actually preparation. What seemed like rejection was redirection. And now, in July, alignments will begin to manifest quickly, clearly, and sometimes unexpectedly. Relationships will form that you didn't see coming, doors will open that had long been shut, and assignments will shift as God brings his people into alignment with their next level of calling. It won't always come with fireworks or fanfare. Often it will begin as a quiet nudge, a divine appointment, a conversation that changes everything. And while it may seem sudden, heaven has been orchestrating it all along. Consider the story of Miguel, a man who spent 15 years working as a janitor in a city school system. He had a degree in education, but no opportunity ever opened for him to teach. Time and again, he was passed over for promotions. Though discouraged, he never became bitter. He kept serving with excellence, always praying, always trusting that God had not forgotten him. In July 2025, the principal of the school where he worked was suddenly transferred, and the interim director, desperate to find someone who both understood the school and had credentials, offered Miguel a position as a full-time teacher. Within 6 months, he wasn't just teaching. He was leading a district-wide mentorship program for troubled youth, something God had placed on his heart years earlier. The sudden shift wasn't luck, it was alignment. All those years that felt like obscurity were actually God positioning him for impact. That's the kind of alignment July will bring, not just career changes, but destiny awakenings. Some alignments will be geographic, people moving to the very places they once resisted. Others will be relational, divine connections formed that unlock new seasons. Still others will be internal, a realignment of desires and priorities where hearts return to their first love and let go of distractions that once seemed essential. God is realigning not just individuals, but entire ministries, families, and even regions. Churches will partner with churches they once competed against. Leaders will hand off platforms to others God is raising up. Generations will align, fathers and sons, mothers and daughters, where division once reigned. But alignment also requires obedience. When God opens a door, you must walk through it. When he closes one, you must let it go. Delayed obedience in this season will cost more than it did before, because timing is key in alignment. You cannot afford to hesitate when heaven says move. You cannot afford to linger in places God has told you to leave. July 2025 will test your trust, not just in what God is doing, but in how he is doing it. Will you surrender your comfort for his calling? Will you trade familiarity for faith? Because the realignment may not always make sense in the moment, but it will make purpose in the end. God is the master weaver, and he is pulling threads together that you didn't even know were connected. People you haven't met yet are already being prepared to meet you. Opportunities you didn't ask for are being ready to welcome you. But you must be in position. July is not about forcing things to happen. It's about flowing with what God is already doing. This is the month to tune your ear, to soften your heart, and to hold your plans with open hands. The same God who aligned Esther with the palace, Joseph with the throne, and Ruth with bows is aligning you with your purpose. July 2025 is not random. It's divine. Trust the process. The alignment is already in motion. You were not born for comfort. You were not saved to sit. You were not called to be silent. The time is now. July 2025 is not just a date. It's a divine appointment. The trumpet is sounding. The king is moving. Rise up. Stand firm. Speak truth. Shine light. For what God has spoken, he will surely bring to pass. The shaking will come. The hidden will be revealed. The window of mercy will open. The remnant will rise, and destinies will align. Do not miss the moment. For such a time as this, you have come into the kingdom.